Okay, we're all good.
Okay, thank you, Annette. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Administration Committee to order. Jennifer, if you'd please call the roll.
Curran,
Here.
Majerick,
Here.
Hugel,
Here.
Meeks.
Here.
You have 4 present.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our meeting on August the 27th of 2020. If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make that motion. This is Michael Majerick.
I'll second it as Commissioner Don Meeks.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Jennifer, would you please call the roll, please, or the vote?
Curran,
Yes?
Majerick,
Yes.
Hugel, did we lose him?
He's frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen. There he goes. Chris?
Hugel,
I think I'm gonna call in if that's okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna try to call in because I keep freezing.
So Commissioner Hugel, they're taking the vote on the minutes. Are you good with that?
I don't know if you called my name or not, but I say yes.
Not yet, but I've got you down now.
Okay, all right. then. And I didn't want to get missed, I guess.
I don't think he can hear me.
Do we wait for Chris to call in?
Yeah, he's working on it.
Okay.
Chris, we're voting on the minutes. You vote yes?
There we go.
Okay.
Would consider that an affirmative, Jennifer.
You have 4 yays.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is in-car cameras. I would imagine that's
Oh,
sheriff and undersheriff.
hello. Yeah, we spoke a little bit about this in our career meeting, not to everybody else. Over the last couple of years, we worked with Bill Wolf about our cameras inside our squad cars because they were coming to the end of the life. Last year, we decided we'd try to put it off to 2021, but knowing, working with Chris and Dale from IS, knowing that we could have some problems, well, we ended up having problems, and we lost our server and Niles and Waterville leaked, and so we can't get any assistance from the company because they're past their service contract, plus they're obsolete now. So our user agreement with them for Empire Building expires in November. Dale's a little concerned about that server too. So we think it's important to move forward to replace those cameras now because the funding source is going to come out of the special fund budget, not the general fund budget. So we don't want to have our system crash and not be able to have cameras until, sometime in March or April if we wait that long to replace these cameras. So I think it's in an emergency situation now that we move forward to make sure we have cameras inside the squad cars. So we were hoping we could make it to 2021. Well, we can't make it that long. So Chuck can go over what the budget is and the company that we're going with. Chuck, you want to take over?
Yeah, so just a little bit, like the sheriff said, in June, our agreement expired for Waterville and Niles. New Buffalo and Empire will expire in November. So we've been told that there's not much they can do. It's obsolete, as the sheriff said. So preparing for this and knowing that we were looking to do this in 2021, as you may remember, we went to a company called Axon for our body cameras, and we've been using those. They've been working well. Axon has what they call Fleet 2, which is their mobile portion of the cameras. So we did a 1-month pilot testing with IS involved. They came out and installed the Axon Fleet 2 in one of our cars. We took it over to the county. Matter of fact, Kip Coolidge and Dale Backus took it to remote areas of the county because the one advantage to Axon is it, when it uploads, it does it through a cell signal. So as we know in Berrien County, there's portions of the county that do not have good signal. We did experience some of those, but as soon as you got into an area where signal was good, it uploaded and it performed well. So we're looking to go with Axon. The redaction capabilities is a lot better. It puts it all in one system with our body cameras, and an ease to get it to the prosecutors and you know, public defenders, defense attorneys, you know, that need that. Obviously, the public expects a camera, and we want to make sure we have them. So, as the sheriff mentioned, we are at the end of life. Dale's very concerned. Matter of fact, I think it was the New Buffalo server he had a little bit of problem with yesterday. So we're looking to move forward as quickly as we can. And as the sheriff said, you know, when we looked at the capital projects, I know it was identified, this would come out of the public safety village in 2021 anyways. So we are looking to move that up. The first year we put in 96,000. The quotes for a little over 90, but Chris Swihart has a couple antennas and things they would need, and that's just under $35,000 for the next 4 years in the maintenance agreement. All the hardware is covered, so this would cover us for 5 years with the proposal we have from Axon for their Fleet 2 mobile cameras.
Any questions?
I have a question. I see for the next topic you have on the jail nurse, there's a resolution assigned to that. There's nothing assigned to the in-car cameras. Do we need a resolution for that, or are we just taking it off?
No, so how we've always handled that before is you are actually approving that through a purchase order. So if the blessing from the admin committees move forward, you know, I think the administrator himself would have either Ben or Doug move the money, we would do the requisition and go through the normal process of the purchase order, which covers that agreement that'll be in there. So we've not done a resolution in the past for that type, because the purchase order covers, and Ben's here, I guess, but that's what we've done in the past. The purchase order would cover that. There's not an outside contract that would be needed.
Okay.
Commissioner Curran?
How many cameras again?
24, and just one that came up the other committee, that does cover the spare vehicle that I know the finance net approved, so that would cover all the cars we have, including the spare cars we put into service next year.
And how much was the cost again?
So it's just over 90,000 for the total for the cameras. We had budgeted 96 in capital projects. Chris is very comfortable with that still because there's some hardware they need to get for that. And then it's just under 35,000 for year 2 through 5 for the maintenance agreement, which covers all the hardware. They replace everything. The difference with Axon too is they do the installation. So in the past we was contracted with Telrad through L3 Mobile Vision was our prior carrier. They do everything themselves. They'll send a piece of hardware if it's something I ask them to install, and they'll come take care of it.
Okay, any questions from any of the commissioners?
Hey, is that spelled AXXON?
I couldn't understand.
Oh, it's Axon, it's AXON. Their mobile one is what they call Fleet 2. It used to be called Taser. So if you notice, you know, Axon is the parent company of what was Taser. We have Axon body worn cameras right now, so it's the same company we've been dealing with for our body worn cameras.
So, and by moving to them, when we turn on our camera in the car to turn our body mic on, if we turn our body mic on to turn our camera on in the car, right now, they have to turn both cameras on, and we all know in high stress situations, sometimes those are forgotten because you're in the middle of trying to figure out how you're going to handle this situation, especially if there's shots fired and all this other stuff. Now we won't have to worry about them forgetting to turn one or the other on. They'll both, you just turn one on and they'll both come on.
That's great.
Any other questions from the committee members? Okay, I guess I'd like to do this through a motion. If someone would like to make a motion to authorize the sheriff along with the county administrator to purchase 24 cameras from Axiom for an estimated cost of approximately $90,000. That would be the motion if someone would like to make it.
That covers all our cars, Chuck.
it's 96, but yeah.
I'll make that motion to cover the cameras, 24 of them, for the prices indicated. And this is Michael.
Don will second that.
Thank you, Michael. And Jennifer, I think just for the record, I heard him say 96. That's what they allotted. So I said approximately 90. If you want to put 96 in there, that's fine. If that's okay with Mike and Don.
That's fine with me.
Okay, very good. Okay, any discussion? Jennifer, would you call the roll, please?
Curran,
Yes?
Majerick,
Yes.
Hugel, Meeks.
Yes.
You have 4 yeas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is contract for part-time jail nurse in the jail. Sheriff? and
All
then-
right, well, thank you. With the things that we have to do because of the COVID-19 and some of the stuff that came down from the governor and the health department from the state level, is that we have to test everybody coming into our jail. We're doing it within 24 hours. And then we have to test everybody leaving. We have to test everybody going to prison or going to a foster home or going to forensic. So our head nurse, Karen, has been doing that 7 days in a row. It's getting overwhelming for her. Plus she takes away from her day-to-day operation to manage our medical department. So for us to continue on to do all this testing, we need a part-time nurse to come in 4 to 5 hours a day to do all this. Now, it's not something that's real simple, like the thing that you shove up your nose. It takes a couple seconds to do it, put it in a thing. We're not using those because the state will not pay for those at the hospital. They will pay for the saliva test, and it takes, the nurse has to pull out a swab, give it to the inmate. The inmate has to run it across the top of his tongue, underneath his tongue, on both cheeks, and then suck on it. And then there's a code on the side. It changes color when it says you have enough saliva in that swab. And then the nurse has to take it back, put it on top of a tube, and plunge the saliva down there until it comes up to a mark in the tube where there's enough saliva to send it in for testing. And then all the paperwork has to be filled out to properly send it. So so that's why we need this part-time nurse. We asked this company to give us a price for an LPN, but as you see, there's a price for an LPN and RN. Right now, they're telling us, you know, they can provide an LPN, but just in case an LPN is not available, we got an RN there, and I think it's $50 an hour for an LPN and $60 for an RN. So as soon as, you know, this would only be until we get through this crisis with COVID-19. Once we can stop doing all these additional tests, we will not need the nurse any longer. But I can't tell you when that's going to be.
Yeah, so as a sheriff started, this started because of the executive order that mandates us to do that. I know some are questioning because the recent Supreme Court decision. We fully expect that MDHHS, who's involved in this, will continue to require it, and so will the Department of Corrections. So the biggest thing for us is to be able to send people to prison once they're sentenced. The Department of Correction, we talked with Judge Duane, they have the authority to do that, and we fully expect that MDHHS will continue an order similar to this, even when everything's worked out with executive orders. I know you guys have discussion with Judge Duane about that today, but we do feel this will continue. How long, as the sheriff said, we don't know, but we did identify the contract. You'll see I worked with Doug James. It is going to be assigned to the CARES Act funding. So the state pays for all the testing and the supplies, FedExing it back and forth. They're supposed to pay for the collection, which they're not right now, but that is going to be covered through the CARES Act, the way we have the contract right now. So we do let this continue, even though there's some questions about executive orders right now, but this will still be a need going forward.
Yeah, and we need this. We can't have somebody in there that got some mental health problems that we can't take to forensic. That would be a terrible thing for us to have to deal with. So you know, as I say, it's part of doing business, you know, something, you know, that we gotta do. But we cannot keep taxing our nurse, our head nurse, to get this done. We'd be in big trouble if she got overwhelmed and got sick herself on how we would operate our medical department.
Hey, thanks for that explanation, Chuck. Because I think I read somewhere where regardless of the governor's executive orders being struck down, that the state health department and Department of Corrections could still require this. So it's still a needed thing, even though the executive orders are kind of up in the air. Any questions from the committee members on this topic?
And committee members, just so you know, I didn't mute you guys because I was getting some feedback. So if you wanted to have a question, you'll have to unmute yourselves. Sorry.
All right, I don't hear any questions, so we'll move that resolution forward then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Under Sheriff. Okay, now we got a long list of resolutions coming up, and we'll begin with approved change in funding for court lien. Is that the order in which you'd like me to proceed, Brian? Is the order in which it's on our agenda?
Yes, that would be great.
I've been told by Annette that yes, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. So the first one is approve change in funding for the court lien. Who's taking that?
Brian, would you like?
Yeah. Commissioner, I'll queue this up, and then we've got two folks on the call that can walk you through this. So in the Zoom, we have myself and Ben from County Administration. We've been working with Caitlin and Carrie, both of whom are on this discussion. I'll have Caitlin walk you through the history of the situation. Carrie can then chime in with the reality of how this is working over at the courts. And then it can come back to myself and Ben just to walk you through the resolution and what we're trying to accomplish. Caitlin, can you take a couple of minutes and summarize how we got to this situation?
Absolutely. Good morning. So back in 2007, approximately when the decision was made to add staff to court lien to take warrant entry out of the dispatch center at that time, it was put as to be a temporary measure until the court was able to automate the warrant entry process through their software. Unfortunately, that has taken quite some time. It's now over a decade later, and the court lien has grown. We now have a full-time position over there as well as 6 part-time positions. And the court process for automation has not happened yet. So the funding is completely coming out of the 911 millage at this time. And that cost was not anticipated to continue to be going for this long. And it has become kind of burdensome on 911. So we have been discussing the possibility of then splitting the funding between the court and 911 until the automation happens, or to be reassessed within 5 years, whichever comes first.
And just to follow up on Caitlin's comments with regards to automation, because I'm sure that's where everyone's questions are next. This agreement dates back to before any of the parties except for Ben were involved, but at the time we were moving into my court, and the impression that we received from the state was that warrant entry automation was a component of my court as it went live. We never got live with the criminal component of my court. Obviously, I think everybody knows the history in the room about the state scrapping that project, us moving into a new system. So just as a reminder where we're at with regards to our new system, we will not be live with the criminal area of the court, criminal or traffic, which would be the largest users of the lien space, until the end of next year, the end of 2021. We are expecting go live for, well, actually, and juvenile will now not be until the end of next year, which would be the other large component there. The remaining portions, so personal protection orders, would be about the only thing that are going live that would utilize lien at this point in time this year. But warrant automation is not one of the things that is available in Equivant to date. That is something that we will be working with them on. We do have an interface as part of the project with MSP, with Michigan State Police, but we need to really understand that a little bit more. And that's not something we were expecting to be able to go live until next year because it wasn't a necessity for phase one. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get something set up with that interface for warrant entry automation. But I just want to be clear. I think we've had some discussions about the amount of configuration that we've been putting into the Equivant JWorks project. And so I assume at this point in time that a lot of the things we would like to be automated right at go live will not be able to do so. So it could take some time. So I think that's where we came up with the 5-year mark, that hopefully within 5 years, we'd be able to manage that with the vendor and with the MSP coordination there.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
So I'm going to just be very candid with this group. The 5-year window is a number that I pulled out of the air. I hope that we can wrap this up in less time than 5 years. However, in just very frank conversations with the management team, I don't have a high degree of confidence that that's going to happen. My goal today is to bring an agreement that is intended to be fair to the 911 operations. It's intended to create a plan that if in 5 years we still don't have this issue licked, that it requires us to come back to the table and continue negotiating. I wish the 5-year number was one that I had a higher degree of confidence in, but it is what it is. I just wanted to make sure that the group was aware that that's a number that we did pull out of the air. I personally pulled it out of the air, and I wish there was more research tied to it. Those are my comments, sir.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any questions from the committee members? Okay, not hearing any questions, we'll move that resolution forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next one is 344, accept grant funding for legal representation.
And this one is Jean Lawrence. She is on Zoom with you guys. And so Jean, if you just kind of wanted to give a little bit of overview of that, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is a grant that you approved us to apply for. It's the second year for this grant, and it's essentially a reimbursement of about 1/3 of what we're paying for our contract attorney fees who are practicing in our child protective proceedings. So proceedings involving abuse and neglect. We have attorneys for the children in those proceedings and attorneys for the parents. We pay about $360,000 in attorney fees to the 6 attorneys under that contract per year. This grant refunds to us approximately $133,000 every year for us to use for specific, we use them for specific projects which have been approved by DHHS. It's not actually part of the grant application itself that we be approved for our projects, but we have 4 projects and they're all listed in the resolution that we're using the money for. But the goal of the funding is to improve our legal representation for parents and children that are involved in these proceedings. So we just heard that we had been awarded this money, and so now we're just asking you to approve our acceptance of that award.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Okay, so that resolution is to accept $133,000, correct?
I'm sorry, Jim, I missed the end of your comment.
The resolution is to accept $133,000.
It's slightly over that. I don't have the exact number in front of me. It's in the resolution.
Okay, the resolution indicates 132,000.
Right.
Okay, any questions from the committee members? Okay, not hearing any, that resolution is moved forward. And we will move on to 353. Approve MOU between Veterans Hospital and the Sheriff's Office.
Chuck?
Yeah, so we were approached by the VA regarding a program they have where they would have a tablet that could be brought into the jail and work with veterans who are incarcerated. So we looked at that program. It seems to have some benefits. We had Judge Wayne did look at the agreement that is in place. They would be providing all the hardware, and then we can set up some ability for them to communicate and serve the veterans that are incarcerated. So, it's through the VA hospital and its connection with the jail. It's a program that we would support and wanting to be a part of.
If I'm reading this correctly, it would put someone from the VA hospital in contact with a veteran in your jail electronically to counsel them a little bit if they're having issues. Is that what this
Yeah,
is?
so it's out of VA in Battle Creek, which exactly said they provide the iPad for us, that we could provide and get to the inmates so they could have that communication.
Yep, and that way they'd be able to know what programs exist out there for them once they're released from our jail, where they can get help for their substance abuse or alcoholism, or if they have any mental health issues from their PTSD.
Right. So in the past, a representative from VA Hospital in Battle Creek would drive down here to do a visit. This is a way for them to do it remotely. And like I said, they would provide the hardware for that, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions from the committee members?
Nope.
Okay, not hearing any. Resolution 353 is moved on. Next resolution is 355, approve contract with Maxim. Okay, you already talked about that one. We're good with that. 357, accept MIDC funding for Public Defender's Office.
And we have Paul Jancha in the room.
Good morning. This resolution, we are asking the committee to approve acceptance of the MIDC grant contract for fiscal year 21. Our total budget is about $3.095 million. The grant contract sets forth the local share for Berrien County's responsibility of that budget, $574,534. And the grant award is just, it's right around $2.5 million. This proposed budget, the submission of it was approved by the board in June. The budget was approved by MIDC along with the compliance plan in August, and now we have received the grant contract, and we are asking the board to approve acceptance of that contract.
Thank you. The only question I have is the base amount went from 562,717 to 574,534, roughly 14,000. What's the reason for the increase, the 14,000 increase?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, when we originally went with the state, we were paying 562,717 for defense costs. That was supposed to be frozen, and MIDC was supposed to pick up everything in addition. But the 562 went to 574, roughly $14,000 increase. And I'm just curious what accounts for that 14,000 increase.
I understand now, thank you. So the local share is adjusted for inflation pursuant to statute. That local share, the original amount was calculated based on 2010, 2011, and 2012. And that share is then adjusted for inflation every year.
Okay, and what is that, 2-3%?
Roughly 2%.
2%. Okay, thank you. Anything from the committee members? Any questions? Okay, not hearing any. Resolution ending in 357 is moved forward. Next on the agenda is 358, accept EMPG funding.
Actually, sorry, Rocky. So Rocky's in the room, and then, so the next three are all Rockies, just so you know.
Thank you. Good morning.
See you, Paul.
And thank you for your time. 5.8 and 5.9 are actually very closely related. So I want to point that out at the beginning as I talk. These are reoccurring grant opportunities through the Emergency Management Performance Grant. We enter into a work agreement with the state of Michigan that will perform to standards that are generally accepted or generally practiced within the emergency management industry that are accredited and set by state guidance. That's about 14 different standards, anywhere from administration of our program to the number of meetings that we go to, how we inform the public about risks and their preparedness. And then there are about 50 data points that we report quarterly to the state of Michigan on to indicate our performance, whether we're successful or off track. We perform that work, and then at the end of or beginning of the state's fiscal year, they'll extend an invitation to accept a portion of pass-through dollars for application toward our salary and time. So that is what 5.8 is. 5.9 is then starting this process again for next year, and I can pause on that one unless there are questions on the first one.
Rocky, could you give me an example of an in-kind rather than a cash? What do we do?
Yeah, so typically it's only a percentage of our salary that they actually fund. So the remaining portion that is unfunded is usually applied to 50% in-kind match toward it. So it's the remaining portion of our salary. And then there are other managerial costs that we could apply to it if we had to, such as, cell phone, all of the equipment and things like that that we need to be able to support our ability to perform these jobs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Okay, that covers 5.9, 5.8 and 5.9. Rocky, you want to talk about 3.60?
Yeah, so just one addition on 5.9. I did not include that we did base our next year's projections for salary on the administrator's guidance for next year. The total salary and fringes dedicated to that program should be about 154,270, and then the portion that would actually be dedicated to the EMPG program would be 73,657 and 85 cents. And I can pause there if that changes anything on 5.9, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Okay, not hearing any, you may proceed.
The final one, 60, is related to our emergency alert system that we use to alert the public. Since about 2013, we adopted a program called the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System into our battery of tools to alert and warn the public. That system allowed us to be able to reach areas that did not have an active siren system, such as the Niles Buchanan area in New Buffalo, and then up in the north end, as well as the county. So we've used that system as part of our all hazards system if we needed to alert the public to take action like evacuation or shelter in place. Fortunately, we are pretty disaster resilient and have not had to use that often. A lot of people have become familiar with this program in relation to Amber Alerts, and just recently the governor had used it for the stay home, stay safe messages. So one component of that is the wireless emergency alert system. The second component of it goes to the radio station and broadcast stations, TV, for activation of the EAS system. As part of our evaluation in that program, we looked at it in terms of having some redundancy built in so that if there were problems with our ability to activate the system, we could have neighboring agencies upon our request activated on our behalf. Those two neighboring agencies that have robust programs that are capable of doing this for us are Van Buren County and Allegan County. And therefore we entered into discussions to draft a memo of understanding to solidify our relationship to be able to activate each other's systems in case there was a need for that. And I'll pause there if there are any questions.
Okay, any questions from the committee members? Okay, not hearing any. Resolution ending in 360 is moved forward. Next is resolution 362, drug court grant award.
And I'm gonna reach out, Commissioner Kern, and see if, oh, Carrie, are you doing these?
I will be for sure. I don't know that Haley was able to make it on or not. So I actually can see all three of them at the same time if you'd prefer the three subsequent resolutions.
Okay, so I do have somebody here who's on their phone, and I wasn't sure if that was Haley or not, but I do need to explain to the committee, these next three ones all came out of the courts, and I did chat with Haley yesterday, and we are going to add, you actually had approved applying for all of these in another resolution. So normally we would have put that spot up there at the top where it talked about, where that would say the resolution number that you guys approved and on the date, so that it shows that you guys approved applying for these. So the actual resolutions that will go forward will have that little change just in the top, just to refer back to that resolution. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, no problem. So ultimately the three grant awards we received are not unfamiliar to all of you. We apply for them pretty much every year, have done so since about 2010. We received a $40,000 grant from the State Court Administrator's Office for drug treatment court. That is a cut from last year and from what we requested. Thankfully, in that particular treatment court, we do have the staff funded out of the public safety millage because it is related to drug rehabilitation. And we do also typically receive two other grants to subsidize the drug testing for that area because, as noted, drug treatment court, it is heavy in the drug testing component to ensure compliance. We have yet to hear back from the Community Corrections Advisory Board with regards to their grant, but this will at least cover inpatient stays and things of that nature when necessary. The next one, I believe, is the mental health court grant. Again, that is a slight decrease in what we requested. I should note we were expecting that because of the state budget for the year, so it's not a surprise to us by any means. We will, in that grant, also be able to fulfill what we had requested. We just won't be able to add any additional time for those folks, any additional participants to that this year. It'll just be kind of stay at the level we were at, which was not what we were hoping for, but we will manage. And then the third grant that we received is for Swift and Sure Sanctions Probation Program. That is less a treatment court and more so a specialty probation docket. And that was a decrease from what we requested, but not much different than what we received this past fiscal year. We had requested an increase in the grant because Judge Losada is currently running that docket, and he had hoped to get up to 100 participants, and we wouldn't be able to manage that with the current budget. So unfortunately, we won't be able to get up to 100 participants, but we will be able to manage with what we had the past year. Any additional questions?
I don't hear any. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, not a problem. You all have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, then resolutions ending in 362, 363, and 364 are moved forward. Any questions, concerns from the committee members?
No,
Okay.
sir.
I forgot to thank Captain Rocky Adams for coming in and giving that report. Appreciate that, Rocky. Okay, next item on the agenda is update on the Friend of the Court remodel.
Annette, I sent you an email with a PDF attached to it. Can you share that to the screen? If you can't, it's no big deal.
No, you're good. I just wasn't on my email.
Okay. Commissioner Curran?
Yes, sir.
So Annette is going to pull up a PDF that was developed by Abbenmarsh Engineering. For this group, I met with all of our stakeholders, our Buildings and Grounds team, Carrie, and then Tom Watson from a Friend of the Court. As we continued discussions, the group agreed that there was some growing anxiety about the potential removal of the wooden wall due to there potentially being some components inside that wall that shouldn't be touched without a higher level of skilled professional working on it, specifically some type of contractor. Before we took the deep dive into opening up the wall, I asked Abbenmarsh to come and visit the site. Attached are some drawings that were assembled by Abbenmarsh, and I'm going to ask Annette just to flip through. There's 3 pages.
That's 2.
Yep, and then the last one.
And that's 3.
Yeah. So to the admin committee, I wanted you all to see where we're at. What we have done is realize that the cost of this project is going to be far beyond the $9,000 that was originally discussed. Where we are at this moment is Todd from Buildings and Grounds is in conversations with an established local contracting firm just to get a rough estimate of what this type of work would actually cost, how many weeks would be needed. Once we have that information, I will be bringing Todd back to talk with you all about whether or not you're comfortable with taking the project out to bid. Secondary action on this is whether or not I can tie it directly to CARES Act funding. We do have a significant amount of money that has been given to us by the state of Michigan via the CARES Act. If we can demonstrate that there is truly a positive benefit to spacing the staff out, creating more physical distance between each other, I think at that point we could have a project that could be funded with a portion of the CARES Act money. But until I've got realistic pricing, I cannot move us forward. So I hope that at your next admin committee meeting, I will have an idea of pricing and also on how many weeks, months would be needed to implement this type of plan. Commissioner Curran, members of the admin committee, that's a brief update, but I just wanted to give you an idea of where we're at. Can I answer any questions?
Hey, thank you, Brian. Any questions from the committee members?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Was this supposed to be done in-house?
Yes, sir. Originally, we were looking at doing the work in-house. As we've looked more at the wall removal, the potential for hazardous materials being inside that wall is becoming more and more realistic. If there's any type of asbestos abatement that's going to happen, we're going to need to bring in outside labor to assist. Now, with that said, there's still a good chance that we can tag team this between our team and an outside contractor, but we've got a growing probability that we've got some very old materials inside the wall that we're not certified to handle or remove.
But we do have someone looking at this to test for asbestos. Even if the outside contractor had to do it, they still, if it had to be tested, I mean, some had to be tested to see if it's asbestos related. So if that's the case, we could have it removed by an asbestos contractor. And then we can assure that our workers are safe if they want to do it themselves.
Complete agreement, sir.
Yeah. So that's basically, I don't have a problem with putting it out for bid. I don't have a problem with it, but long, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, we can justify and get the money back. That's fine too. Just, you know, what are the requirements we got to do? But my thing, I just kind of like thrown off on this, subbing it out to a contractor now. So that's basically all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, sir.
All right.
Okay. We had not received that diagram previously. The way we had constructed or talked about for the clerk's office with the handicap accessible and microphone, was that all built into that that last diagram, Brian?
Sir, I'm sending it to you right now. I believe that was covered. I know that topic was brought up, but give me 5 minutes and you'll have a copy of the file.
Okay, great. And how long do you anticipate the delay to be?
Sir, I'll have to connect with Todd Johnson today to get a better understanding of what his timeline is. He and I connected, I believe, middle of last week, and he was going to start making phone calls to some local contractors to see on pricing and on schedule.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
I lost you, Jim. Try that again.
From the committee members, any questions on that topic?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing no questions. Is that it on that topic, Brian?
That's it, sir.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I do have one last question for the sheriff and undersheriff, because I know I'm going to get asked this question on the cameras. Was that put out for bid?
No, so what we talked about before, we did a sole source because of wanting it to comply with our body worn cameras and the same company. So that's the only reason it wasn't, was because we're talking with IS, Chris Swihart, and making sure they're compatible and be able to do the things the sheriff talked about when one turns on and the other. Axon is the only one that can do that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. Anything else from the committee members on anyone present in the room? Okay, then we'll move on to public comments.
All right, I'm gonna go out and ask for public comments. I actually asked once already, but I'll do it again here in just a second. While we're looking for those, Commissioner Freeling had, he was watching our meeting today, asked about the part-time nurse, whether it's covered by CARES Act funding and does it fall under the temp 1,000 hour policy. So I responded to her that yes, it does. It is covered by the CARES Act funds. And then I wasn't sure on the question, so I did reach out to Shelley Jasper, and she had said that the 1,000 hour limit was built into the contract because of the funding.
Yeah, so being a contract is not employee, that's tied to employees, the
Right,
1,000.
which is originally what I said,
Right.
but she said that that was built in there already because of the funding or something to that effect.
Yeah, so the funding is in there. The 1,000-hour only applies if it's a county, if it's our employee. So,
And just to restate what you've already said, that is the definition of the CARES Act funding.
Right.
I mean, this is completely tied to COVID.
And then Commissioner Feeling also wanted to have a public thank you to Rocky and his staff for all their work and efforts during the past 7 months in responding to the pandemic and emergency responses. All of our essential workers have been amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask one more time for any other public comments. All right, it doesn't appear as though you have any additional comments.
Okay, thank you, Annette. Is there anything else on the agenda here from Brian, or Annette, or Jennifer?
No, sir.
Nope.
Okay, if there is nothing else before this committee, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone from the Sheriff's Department. We appreciate the hard work that you guys all do. Appreciate it. We'll see you at 10:30.
Annette?